Welcome to Talk Dizzy to Me, the show that brings you a comprehensive look into the complex field of dizziness. Now, here are your hosts, vestibular physical therapist Dr. Abby Ross and Dr. Danielle Tate.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Danielle Tate. I'm a physical therapist specializing in the treatment of vestibular dysfunction.
And I'm Dr. Abby Ross, physical therapist and neurologic clinical specialist, also specializing in the treatment of vestibular dysfunction.
And we are self-proclaimed vestibuloholics. Yes, that is a new word. And what is a vestibuloholic? Well, it's a person who is addicted to or excessively fond of the vestibular system, its dysfunction, and the treatment of its dysfunction. In other words, us.
Definitely us. While our show's aim is to provide all things vestibular to both clinicians and patients alike, with endless resources, tips and tricks, we have interviews coming up with experts in the field and support, we thought it would be appropriate to first tell our listeners a little bit about us, how we became vestibuloholics, how we met, where you can find us to get the help you're looking for, and more.
How we met actually sounds like the beginning of a terrible, bad joke. Two vestibular therapists walked into a tequila bar in DC, and now they have a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a funny story. We like to consider it more like fate, really. So there were two vestibular therapists who, one, loved to learn, two, obviously loved tacos and margaritas, and three, loved to travel. So randomly, we're sitting next to each other at a bar in a Mexican restaurant. We both had a margarita in hand at the end of a long day. We were at the American Physical Therapy Association's Combined Sections meeting in 2019 in Washington, D.C.
Now, not all physical therapists are vestibuloholics. In fact, most aren't. So it was definitely a shock when we were both sitting next to each other, striking up a conversation, and with just, one of our kind. We exchanged business cards, and the rest is history. And both of us have gone on to do a lot in vestibular worlds here. So I started Vestibular Today, which is a website that came about 3 years ago as a way to share this inner ear model that I developed for clinician and patient education. And I really aimed to create a place where vestibular clinicians could find information in one place. So this included research, case studies, goggle videos, and whatever else would be helpful to learning how to get into vestibular therapy. So this continues to be my hope, to grow it into a large community full of input from various specialists in the field. And we're definitely heading in that direction.
Yes. And I started Balancing Act in December 2018, Balancing Act Rehabilitation, it's called. This was, of course, pre-pandemic, when telehealth or virtual care was pretty much unheard of, especially in the realm of physical therapy and vestibular therapy. After having patients fly, once, twice a week from other states to where I was working at the time in New York City, I felt there really was a need to reach these patients without access to vestibular experts, or even those who were too symptomatic to commute to an appointment, or didn't want to rely on a family member or friend, or didn't have a family member or friend to assist them with the drive, especially because their symptoms would likely be exacerbated with their vestibular appointment. So at Balancing Act, we provide evidence-based vestibular rehabilitation right in the comfort of your home through live video conferencing.
Which I think is so important, especially now, but even in the world of vestibular therapy, not a lot of people have access to vestibular specialists, care, or treatment. So having that option is huge, which is why I'm super excited that I got to join you and Balancing Act Rehab to start treating patients over video conferencing. It's been really, really cool and different, and a really neat learning experience.
We make a good team.
We do. It's very exciting. Well, we both work also with VeDA, the Vestibular Disorders Association. I've probably been on VeDA's website at least once a day since I started treating out of school. Their resources have just been absolutely invaluable to both me and my patients. And I couldn't be happier with the sense of community that they built for patients with vestibular dysfunction. Currently, I do serve on the board of VeDA, as well as participate actively in different committees, including a legislative advocacy committee, the professional development committee, and the conference committee, which, Dr. Ross, why don't you talk about what we're working on in that committee, since you also serve on that?
Yes, absolutely. So this September 13th through the 19th, VeDA will be hosting a virtual educational series including topics presented by both vestibular experts and supplemented by actual patients, people you can relate to. We'll be exploring the topics of 1, navigating the healthcare system, 2, psychological aspects of vestibular disorders, 3, vestibular rehabilitation therapy, also known as VRT, 4, PPPD or 3PD, which is known as persistent postural perceptual dizziness, and 5, complementary or alternative treatments to vestibular disorders. As a committee, we've been working so hard to bring you the most up-to-date information on vestibular dysfunction treatment and also how to regain your quality of life.
We're hoping to make Talk Dizzy to Me into an engaging yet informative podcast that both clinicians and people with vestibular dysfunction can listen to. We will be interviewing special guests on the show, including discussing the latest developments in research and treatments, tackling through case studies, and everything else our vestibuloholic brains desire to talk about.
And now we want to hear from you. What topics do you want us to cover? We are here for you. Is there someone you would recommend we invite on the show? We're all ears. You can find our short survey on our Facebook page at Vestibular Today, as well as in the show notes for this episode. You can also find this form on the homepage of www.vestibular.today. You can help get the word out, please, 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 about our podcast by rating and reviewing us wherever you download your podcasts. Stay tuned for more episodes of Talk Dizzy to Me. We're so excited, and thank you so much for listening.
If you're interested in finding us on social media or the web, you can visit www.vestibular.today for more resources, including testing, treatment, and educational videos, blogs, continuing education classes, and resources including clinic equipment recommendations, suggested tests, and BPPV treatment charts.
Search Vestibular Today and Balancing Act Rehab on all social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Also, be sure to check out Balancing Act Rehab at www.balancingactrehab.com, especially if you think you would benefit from vestibular therapy. We are your girls. The information on this podcast is not intended to replace the care provided by your qualified health professional or to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on Talk Dizzy to Me. Please contact us at Balancing Act Rehab if you think you could benefit from vestibular therapy.